Thank you everyone for joining. My name is Tejinder Singh. Everybody calls me TJ. I'm one of the board members for Friends of Ottawa National Wildlife Refuge. Co-hosting this session with me is another board member and our treasurer, Tom Ramito, with me. And we also have our wonderful presenter, Jeremy Dominguez. We'll introduce him in a minute. But we just wanted to give a quick introduction on what Friends of Ottawa National Wildlife Group does. We are a 501(c) organization supporting Ottawa National Wildlife Refuge for their mission of land acquisition, preservation, conservation, youth education, and for public use projects. We are based on, I think most of you may know, but we are based on the southern lakeshore of Lake Erie near Oak Harbor. And this session is part of our Seek the Refuge series. This is our only session in April for this year, and I think the topic is very apt based on the biggest week in birding that's upcoming. Joining us, and in the meeting, a couple of things. During the meeting, we'll post a couple of links. One link would give you more details about Friends Group. It will also have information on upcoming events. And then lastly, towards the end, we'll post a survey seeking your feedback on, what you want to see in additional, like how did you feel about this session and additional sessions you would like to see from the Ottawa National Wildlife Refuge. We do encourage, I know I recognize many of your names. Most of you are either members of the Friends Group or support or donate for the refuge, but the link does take you to our nature store. You can become a member if you're not a member. So we'll post that link shortly. Before we start the meeting, I think we'll request everybody to mute so that there's no background noise for our presenter. We would take questions in the chat box. Tom and I would monitor those questions. Jeremy has been kind enough. He would take questions during the session and he'll leave some portion at the end to take your questions. This session is scheduled for an hour. Again, Jeremy has been very gracious. If we go over a few minutes, he's happy to take questions after the 1 hour mark also. With that said, I know it's already 7:01, so I would request Jeremy, I invite Jeremy to share his screen. Jeremy is an eBird reviewer for Ottawa, Lucas, and Fulton County. He is also coming from the zoo, a new department that they've opened up, ornithology department. And I have met Jeremy multiple times during my birding at McGee Marsh, at Ottawa, or at Howard Marsh. So really looking forward to this session. A lot of things that I need to learn about eBird. I do eBird, but not as fervently or as diligently that I should do. So this is definitely a session that would encourage me more to do it. And I hope everybody else also feels the same way. So Jeremy, turning it over to you.
Yes, welcome. Thank you for the introduction. I'm going to get this up real quick.
I can see your screen. Yeah.
All right, that should be my screen up. All right. Well, TJ, thank you for the introduction. Tom, thank you for having me, and everybody for inviting me out and getting a chance to listen to me talk tonight. You did a good job at introducing myself, but I'll reiterate. My name is Jeremy Dominguez, and I have a very long title. I am the Birding Outreach Coordinator and Ornithologist at the Toledo Zoo and Aquarium. And that gives me opportunities to basically connect people to birds and wildlife via the zoo, and then get people connected to the zoo via birds and wildlife. So it's a great opportunity. Along with that, with my work duties, I'm also the eBird reviewer, along with several others here in Northwestern Ohio. We do Lucas County, Fulton County, and Ottawa County. So really popular places to come birding, especially in May. So it takes a lot of effort and a lot of work to, do all the eBird and all the eBird reviewing for those counties, just for the influx of people that come during that time. So, like I said, I'm not the only eBird reviewer, but I am one of the eBird reviewers for this region. And along with that, I'm also the Northwestern Director of the Ohio Ornithological Society. I have a big presence here when it comes to birding here in Northwestern Ohio. I know a lot about birding here in Northwestern Ohio, and I'm hopefully I can share some of that knowledge and some eBird tips with you guys tonight. This is a very basic overview of eBird. I'm really going to try to hit the basics, and then if anyone has any questions, want a deeper dive into something like, oh, I was really curious about this, or like, hey, you didn't touch on that, please ask. Like TJ has already mentioned, I'm very open to getting questions during the middle of the talk. I believe Tom's going to monitor the chat box for me, and if anyone has any questions as they pop up, Tom's going to chime in, and he's going to ask me those questions on your guys' behalf, and I'll try to answer them to the best of my knowledge. If I don't know them off the top of my head, I will make sure to look them up and get back to you. So I'm going to go over some eBird basics, the things I like to do on eBird and how I use it as a birder. I'm going to go over eBird Mobile, and I'm going to go over how to use eBird at Ottawa. Because this is the Friends of Ottawa group, I'm using Ottawa as the example. When I show you how to use eBird at Ottawa, it really can be translated to lots of different areas. And then I'm going to go over some of my favorite places to go birding here in Northwestern Ohio. A lot of them are the popular places to go birding. Lots of you, I'm sure, are very familiar with some of those places. But I'm going to touch base on them anyways and give you reasons why I really enjoy birding in those locations. So let's jump in here. Boom. Okay. So, and I really mean basic. So I'm going to start with what is eBird, right? So eBird is a giant online citizen science database that is ran through the Cornell Lab of Ornithology, based out of the University of Cornell. And what they do is they collect sightings from birders, and they turn that into useful data for them, whether it be ways to learn about different migration patterns or breeding information, and on and on. It really is like a limitless tool. Like it really has so many things that you can use eBird for. Whether you're a scientist, a novice birder, it doesn't matter, and anywhere in between that. So there's so much that eBird has to offer, and they're consistently updating it as far as like taxonomy is up to date, and it's an incredible source of information. And I'm going to dive more into it, but I'm not going to read all these words on here. This is taken straight from eBird, basically, but it's a great way to contribute to citizen science. It is the largest citizen science database. So it's pretty incredible, honestly. And it's a great way to keep track of the birds that you've seen. So I'm going to talk about that also here in a little bit. All right, so I'm going to talk about eBird basics, and when I do that, I think the easiest way for me to talk about eBird basics is to kind of show you how I use eBird. Everyone uses eBird differently. Sometimes people, will say like, oh, I really like to use, the bar charts, or I really use this or this. There's so many different ways to use eBird, and I'm going to show you the ways I really like to use eBird. So I'm going to jump on in here right here. Boom. So once you click into eBird, so this is the eBird from a desktop perspective. And so once you get here, this is the eBird homepage. There's all these buttons up here up top, right? So and to get on eBird, all you need is to create an account, and all you need is an email. So basically, if you're on Zoom, you could basically create an eBird account as well. It's very, very easy. But so once you get on here, if you're logged in, it'll show your stats over here. It always shows you a fun little picture, like this tiny frog mouth right here. But I'm going to click on this little guy right here, which is the Explore tab. And this is where I spend the majority of my time on eBird. And if you're using eBird to go out and find birds, this is where you'll spend the majority of your time as well. So this is the great spot to really start exploring eBird, I would say. There's a bunch of different things here. You have your explore species, explore regions, explore hotspots, bar charts, photos, and species maps. So I'm going to dive into some of these real quick. I'm going to start over here with the species maps. And this is where I spend a lot of my time on eBird. So I'm going to click here. And it's going to pull up a map of the world right away. So via this, you can search for any bird ever seen. And I'm just going to start with a bird that's fresh in my mind right now. And that is going to be a Smith's longspur. So if I type in Smith's longspur right here, all this purple are all spots where Smith's longspur has ever been reported on eBird. All right, and it's a pretty accurate depiction of where the Smith's longspurs have ever occurred. So, or the species may have ever occurred. So, the next thing I usually do is I'll click this, and then I will zoom in on where I want to look. So I want to zoom in on Ohio. Usually there's a little tab. Actually, I'm going to click the zoom. Boom. I'm going to click here. All right, so this brings us to our region. And as you can see, there's little dots, and there's blue dots, and there's red dots. You can see the one red dot over here. And what those dots signify are places where Smith's longspurs have been seen. And what the red means are, if the dot is red, it means it's been seen within the last 30 days. So within the last month, so that's a recent sighting. If it's a big dot with a red or with a flame inside of it, that means it's a hot spot, which means it's a place that lots of birders go to go see birds. And if they're one of these small dots, that's a personal location. So that's somewhere where someone may have been just out and about and they saw a Smith's longspur and that's a spot where they've been seen. So it's not necessarily a place where lots of people go birding. And I'm going to explain hotspots next. So, but these are also the big ones are the hotspots. So this is how I would use eBird if I was curious, if I was going to go to a location, if I wanted to see if birds were reported there. So if I was going to go out and look for Smith's longspurs, Northwestern Ohio is not really a great place to go see it, despite there being one sighting. And then you can click on this. It brings up who saw the bird and when they saw the bird and where they saw the bird at. Then you can click on the date, and that will bring you to that person's what we call checklist. And that'll tell you all about all the species seen at that spot, descriptions sometimes of the birds. So if they saw a lot of birds, 650 or so, they'll tell you why. You know, they'll note that big numbers, mostly in western portion of the field, or Smith's longspurs, and they'll describe the bird for you in detail. So this is what it looks like when a rare bird is reported. People will try to give you as much detail as possible, so us eBird reviewers have something to go off of. And then if you wanted to go there, you could click this little map. It'll bring you to give you directions of how to get there, and et cetera, et cetera. But that is how you use the species maps in a nutshell. Let's go back to here. You could also narrow it. This is really, really cool. Let's say you wanted to go see what Smith's longspurs were seen in the last 10 years through March and May. Boom. So you can really narrow it down to what month. You can zoom out more. And you can see March and May. These are where the Smith's longspurs are occurring in big numbers. So you can really play with this. You can enter locations. You can do this with any sort of, you know, bird that you really wanted to do it. If you wanted to know where in the world, you know, giant hummingbirds were, you can click this. And this will tell you where they are now. Of course, I have the date here. So, but those are where giant hummingbirds occur in the world. So it's really, really awesome. It has every species you could do this for. So pretty great stuff. So that's species maps. Like I said, that's where I spend a majority of my time. But we touched on hotspots. So I'm going to click Explore Hotspots. Use my little zoom tool. And so if you were traveling somewhere, let's say, and you wanted to explore hotspots, you would use this one. And this is to find maybe not particular species, but maybe you wanted to go find lots of different species in a general area. So you would use this, and it tells you over here to the side, the hotter it gets, the warmer it gets, is more species. So if you look over here in Tucson, you can see the red, there's one red arrow, and that's going to be the one with the most species seen. So you're like, wow, I really want to go check out that place. There's a lot of birds there. And all that means is there's more species. So if you click on it, you click on in here, Sweetwater Wetlands, you can learn where it's at. And then if you really wanted to view all the details, or you can view the bar charts, high counts, etc., but you can view details. It'll bring you there once my internet thinks. Boom. And this will give you all the sightings from the most recent first. So you can see that Christopher had blue-winged teal, cinnamon teal, and a bunch of other birds today. It'll give you the most recent photographs. It'll tell you who's been birding there. And it'll tell you the people that have been birding there the most. So Molly Pollock has been birding there a lot. She's seen 261 species here. So that's pretty cool stuff. And then, you know, you can do all sorts of different things. The first time a bird was seen at a place, you can really start to dive into, you know, different things when it comes to these. If it'll load. Oh, I'm waiting for it. Go to explore again. So anyways, so that's explore hotspots. Again, that's the nitty gritty of it. You know, click it, you can find out where to go birding, and that's a great way. I don't use the bar charts a lot, but a lot of people do. They click them, it gives you a snapshot of when the bird is most likely to occur in an area. This is just what it sounds like. It's photos and such. So you can look for different birds. This is most recent uploaded, but if you would say you want to know all about a Townsend solitaire and you want to look at different pictures of it, this is going to give you these are all pictures that users have submitted, and these are all pictures of Townsend solitaire. So you can see here there's 42,241 pictures of Townsend solitaire. So there's no shortage of pictures of this species on here, and almost all, I think now eBird has almost every pictures of every species in the world on here. So all these, but you get the idea. Townsend solitaires, but you could really start to narrow this down too as well. And let's say you wanted to maybe know what all like the juvenile Townsend solitaires look like. And then you can really start to like chime in on different things. This nice little juvenile Townsend solitaire. You can see all the speckling on it. So nice. I don't think that's a juvenile. But that's an idea how to use this. There's also videos and sounds that go with it. So if you want to go to sounds, you can start listening to the bird. You can really start to learn about the different things.
Jeremy, I think there's a couple of comments or questions that have come in. Maybe Tom,
yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Jeremy, Denise has asked, can you review breeding codes, please?
Breeding codes. I will. So like, yes, I could do. So the ones, to clarify, I'm hoping she means the ones in the when you submit the checklist, the breeding codes there, and I will get to breeding codes here in a second. I'll touch base on those here in just a second. So
yeah.
So yes, I will get to breeding codes.
Okay, and Jeremy, one more question, please. Can you only add photos and audio to checklists on the desktop version? The viewer cannot figure out how to do it from the app.
I believe, as of right now, I believe you can only do it from the desktop. I believe it's only from the desktop as of right now, and I feel like I had a conversation with somebody that that knew something that they were saying they wanted to improve on that, touch on that, and they wanted to be able to upload it through the app. But I think right now it's through desktop only. So what I generally do is I'll submit with my phone, open up the desktop version on my phone, and then I will add media that way is how I generally do it.
Yeah, Jeremy, Paul Jasek has confirmed that it's only from desktop.
Yeah, yep, that's what I thought. It is only from desktop. So
Real
the easiest way if someone's using their mobile phone when they submit is to open up the desktop version on their phone, and then they can, if they have the photos in their camera roll or anything like that, it's pretty quick and easy to use the desktop version on your phone as well. So.
Thank you so much, Jeremy.
Yep. Any more questions right off the bat? That's it.
Not right now.
Okay, I will touch on breeding codes. If I touch on them and I didn't touch on them enough for you, please reiterate. So just say, hey, can you touch on them a little more? But I will get to those when I'm going to talk about the eBird mobile, and I'm going to talk about them in that a little bit. So coming back in here, I want to talk about target species. This is a great way to figure out which birds you need in a certain area. So let's say I can focus on Lucas County, Ohio in April. I need for my Lucas County year list. And this will show me all the birds that I need for my Lucas County year list. And so my most likely bird, if I go out birding, would be pied-billed grebe, and that shows that it's been 20% of checklists submitted in April. There's a pied-billed grebe on, so that's impressive. So there's a good chance. You got a good chance to see pied-billed grebe. With that being said, I haven't seen one yet, but it's okay. You can really dive into this. It really breaks it down as you narrow it down. You can get all the way down here. The chances in April of you seeing some of these species is pretty slim. So less than 1%. So you get the idea how target species, and you can do this for any area. It's really good. But what this can do is, all right, so I need pied-billed grebe. Show me where they are. Boom. So you can click this, and this brings up all the spots where pied-billed grebes have been seen in your area or the area that you're searching. So if I wanted to search here, Maumee Bay State Park, boom. Then you can say, oh, so people have had Maumee Bay State Park, Inland Beach. There's been one. Oh, TJ saw one there on the second. Look at that. So, and then you could click the details, and they can see all the birds that person saw on Inland Beach at Maumee Bay State Park on that time. So it gives you a really good snapshot on how to use target species. There's this one, alerts. And alerts are a great way if you're like, I get asked all the time, how did you know this rare bird was here? How did you know that bird was going to be there? Why are you going here to look for that bird? We use alerts a lot. So us birders use alerts. And this is basically, will give you an email. You can set it up for an hourly alert or a daily alert, depending on what you want. And it'll email you every hour. So it can get kind of annoying if you're not really wanting that. So but like rare birds of Ohio, I get a daily alert. I really like to look at them through sort by date. So you can sort by date, and it'll bring up the newest rare birds have been seen. So I can see at Windy Park there was evening grosbeaks, at 5 o'clock. I can click on the details. It'll say flying, so that means Catherine had them flying. Flying by. In Franklin County, Bruce Miller had some. He had a male at the feeder, a purple finch, covered with rosy color all over, especially back. So all these birds that are on the rare bird alerts, those are all going to be birds that come into me and the other eBird reviewers queue. So we're going to see all these for our area. So the Franklin County eBird reviewer to get this, and so on and so on. And what they do is, as eBird reviewers, we will confirm them or unconfirm them as they come in. So you can see this one is green, it says confirmed. And what that means is the eBird reviewer has seen that report and has accepted it. And once the eBird reviewer accepts a rare bird, it will then go to Cornell to be logged into their data. So if it's a rare bird and we don't think it's a good data, maybe it's not described enough or whatever the case may be, we can unconfirm it, and then it will not go into Cornell's data. So Cornell uses us eBird reviewers as like the first initial basically review process to filter out good data for them to use. So that's what this is. And again, you can check these out. You can click on the dates, and then so Jeff had a evening grosbeak, and he put a recording of it here. So pretty cool. And that was here in Lucas County. So boom. So species maps, sounds and photos, explore hotspots, target species, and alerts are what I use the most. And as you can see on here, there's a lot of other things to click through. If I clicked on every little link, we'd be here forever. So I'm not going to do that. But that is how I use this explore area of eBird. This one is also really, really cool. If you wanted to explore something, if you want to look at tawny frogmouths, this will give you a brief history of the bird. It's basically a big online field guide. So it'll tell you a little brief history, give you some pictures. Again, it brings up the range map you can click on. It says it's been noted on eBird 42,000 times. And then it'll bring up more pictures and audio and videos and all that kind of stuff. So, and they have this for every bird in the world. So it's pretty cool. So that's the Explore tab in a nutshell. The other thing I wanted to basically touch on was the My eBird tab. So once you set up an eBird account, you are going to be have the opportunity to have your checklists you submit will be logged into your eBird. So this is what the inside of My eBird it looks like. Nobody can see this portion of eBird except for you. So so you guys are getting like an inside look at my stuff. But this is my stats. I've seen 1,500 birds, and it breaks it down to year. So how many birds I saw in the world in the year, and you can change this by region. So if I want to go to United States, so now it says I saw 773 birds in the United States. And again, breaks it down by year, so you can see which years I saw the most. This was as of April 13th, it looks like. And then this is for the whole year. I saw that many birds. And then it breaks it down by state. You can really get into this. So this is, boom, click. And then it brings up where you saw those birds. So it's your own checklist, and it really, really goes on and on and on. I mean, it really, really breaks it down, the different countries. For people that love lists and love keeping track of the birds, this is incredible. If you submit one list, it might go onto several different eBird lists. So it might go onto your South American list, and then that might go into your Ecuador list, which might go into your whatever county or state you are in Ecuador. So it really can break it down into so many different things. It's pretty incredible, and it would be really hard to do with just pen and paper how people used to do it. Another little cool thing, you can click your little icon, and this will bring you to your profile. Now, profiles can be made public or private. So this could be, so these are, mine's public. You can see over here to the left, it says public, but you can turn yours off and then people won't be able to see what you're doing. So some people have privacy concerns. Some people don't want people to know, where they're out birding or all that kind of stuff. Just go ahead and turn it to private, and then the only people that can see it are Cornell. They'll be the only ones that can see it. We won't be able to see any of your profile. So, but this is pretty cool. You can write a little description about yourself, and then you can kind of see where in the world that you've been birding, and it'll tell you if you hover. I've seen 359 species in Ohio. If I just hover here, I can click it, boom. I can see what birds I've seen in Lucas County. Boom, if I click Lucas County, it'll show me the birds that I've seen in Lucas County with photos, different audios. And then if I want to like dive in here, I can look at all the different photos that I have for the county. So these are all my photos. Boom. But that just goes on and on. So this is great. I spent an okay amount of time checking out my different stats. And if you want to go back and like look for a different bird, like maybe you saw a bird in Arizona in 2020, you can go look up for that eBird checklist, and then you can go back to that spot and all that stuff. So like I can look at my most recent checklist. Here's one from McGee Marsh from the other day that I had, and then this is all what I saw, and it's all nice and logged for me. And then here, right here to our left. So when you have your tracking on, I'm going to talk a little bit more about tracking here in a second. I'm going to talk about the eBird mobile. But it tracks how far you walked and how much time you spent, but it also gives you your little track here. This is only you can see this. People will not be able to see your track. They're not going to be able to see where all you walked around at. So as you can see here, whoa, if I can zoom in or out. I just kind of, I start my eBird checklist when I cross into the county line, and I drive in and I park and I walk the boardwalk of McGee Marsh, and then I drove out. So I stopped my eBird checklist when I crossed the county line again. So that's how that's my eBird track.
Well, excuse me, Jeremy.
Yep.
Participant Lindsay has a couple of random questions. He says, when did eBird start, and can you do a yard list on eBird?
Okay, so I can't remember the exact date off the top of my head when eBird exactly started. I've been using eBird since 2014, and I will tell you that it has improved immensely since 2014 at least. You used to not be able to submit checklists from your phone. Even you used to come back to the computer and type in your whole entire checklist, and it was kind of a pain. So I'm not exactly sure when Cornell launched eBird. I'm sure if you explore the date or do a quick Google search, it's pretty easy to figure out, but I can't remember off the top of my head. And then as far as yard list goes, there's definitely ways to do like yard list or different like patch birding, as we call it. And basically what you could do is you can keep on submitting birds from your own yard, and you have your own location. And those little small dots that aren't those red hot spots. And basically you can build your own little yard list from that. So, and then some people like what they'll call their patches, and you can do the little patch list, and eBird lets you do all that kind of stuff. So you can just keep on doing that. So yes, it is an easy way to track all the birds in your yard. So here's yard totals, patch totals, and like I said, you can really start to like dig into all this kind of stuff. So,
Jeremy, Paul has given us a link for the yard list page, and that's very helpful.
Yep. So here's my, like, you could, even if you want, like, let's say it wasn't your yard, or you like me, I live in an apartment. You can say like maybe you could call it your patch, and that could be your different locations. And some people have different hotspots they call their patch, and then you can add it into here, and then you can keep track of all the birds that you see in your little patch. So it's a bunch of different ways to keep different lists of birds that you've seen. So there's really an unlimited amount of ways an unlimited amount of lists that you can keep. So it's pretty awesome.
Real fun. We're good for now, Jeremy.
Great. Very great. So yeah, so that's my eBird. That's Explore. Those are the nitty gritties of it. Open this kind. Okay, so I think I covered most of this stuff on their hotspots, target species alerts, life list, checklist. So yeah, so that's eBird's desktop version. So we got still have the mobile version to talk about here in a second. Okay, so eBird mobile. So this is going to be the way that the majority of us submit our checklists on eBird. It's much easier than doing it on the desktop, which you can do. They have a submit button. It's right next to the explore button, and it's not too hard to figure out, but this is a quick, easy way to remember everything, because when time you get home, you probably forgot a bunch of stuff, so using your phone is a great way to do it. I have a couple little videos here that we try to record. They go by quick. I'm going to try to explain them, but basically, I'm going to talk about starting a checklist, tracking, which I touched on a little bit, traveling versus stationary versus incidental, and I'll explain all that here in a second. And then a couple other little minor details. But I'm going to click play on this. I'm going to try to talk my way through this minute video really quickly. So you're going to open up the app. You're going to hit Start Checklist. You can toggle this little toggle switch right here. It's going to tell you whether you want to turn the tracking on or off. Most of the time, we leave it on. This will record the accurate time and distance you walk. And then after you're done seeing all your birds, you're going to hit Submit. And then up here is your incidentals. And then you can change your time also, date and time, to the most accurate date and time that you have. But most of the time, it keeps track for you. That little thing that came up for a second, it goes really quick. You guys catch that? Oh, go back for a second. Oh, I don't know what I just did. Hold on. This video thinking. Skipped ahead. That's what I did. Oh, there we go. No, I don't want to go forward. Okay, I'll get something. Okay, starting over again. Sorry about that. Technical difficulties.
No problem. Yeah.
Videos on there. Okay, so anyways, I'm gonna try to pause it on the right spot when you're watching a video on here. Your mouse wants to go away if you don't keep holding it. So you started the checklist. There it goes. There it goes. So there's this thing called that wants you to know the protocol that you used to submit the checklist, whether you were traveling or it was incidental. So what traveling means is pretty obvious, whether you were moving during your birding, walking around, whatever. There's stationary, which that one's pretty obvious. You're just standing still. So if you just stood still for 5 minutes and recorded all the birds that you saw and heard. And then there's incidental. An incidental one is a nice one to explain because that could be, I was driving down the highway, I saw this, I can submit an eBird checklist. The incidental really is a kind of a nice one to use if you're not really sure which one to use. Most of them are pretty basic, like I said, traveling, if you're traveling around, stationary. There are other protocols on there below those three, but those three are going to be the bulk majority, what all of us will always use. I have very rarely ever used any other protocols. There's ones that are like nocturnal flight calls, so if you're outside at night, listening for birds flying over and chipping. Like I said, most of us want to use something like that. There's ones for like pelagic, so if you're on a boat, again, most of us aren't getting on boats and looking for birds. And even if you're in a canoe, that would still just be traveling. That wouldn't be like a pelagic. So there's all different kinds of protocols that you can use, but traveling, stationary, incidental, those are the main ones. You can change the time, again, pretty basic stuff. Species to be added while the checklist is running. So what that means is while you're actively birding, the checklist is running, keeping track of your time, keeping track of your distance, and you can input your different birds while you're doing it. So okay, so this is another little video I try to record. there we go. This one's a little bit longer, and it goes into a little bit more detail, but I'm just going to talk our way through it. So when you go to submit your checklist, it's going to ask you to choose where you went birding. So it's going to ask you to choose your hotspot. It's going to bring up a list of different hotspots. You're going to choose the one that best represents your spot. All right. So here we choose Marblehead Neck Wildlife Sanctuary. Boom. And then once you select that, you'll select your protocol, which was traveling. And then after that, you can add your different species. If you need to add more species, you can also add different observers. So let's say there's multiple observers. You can add that to it. It says observers. You can change the number. You can share checklists with people. So there's other eBirders that you're going birding with. You can share them with them, all from the mobile app. This is all great. So then you can go down. Let's say you needed to add a species or number. You can type in the number of species and then what species it is. Type the name and it'll pop up. So if you had one WLI turkeys, you can click it. It'll add it. Let's see. Then you can actually click on the species if you needed to, and you can go in there. And this is where you can add the breeding codes. So we're talking about breeding codes now. And let's see if I go. So I'll pause this for a second on breeding codes because we had a question about it. So breeding codes are just what it sounds like. So if you saw a bird demonstrating breeding activity, you can note that for Cornell. And there's all different kinds of different options for the breeding codes. What you need to select is the one that best fits or best represents what you saw. So if you saw birds sitting on a nest, that might be the best one to submit. If you saw a bird carrying nesting material or building a nest, that might be the best breeding code to use. And it goes on and on. If you click each one, it'll describe which one it is. So if you see how the F is clicked right now and it says flyover. So a flyover does not mean that the bird just flew over you. Birds fly over for all different reasons, and it doesn't necessarily mean a breeding thing. Birds will do demonstrate flyovers to signify different things, territory, and so on. And that's what a flyover actually is. But anyways, again, you have to choose the best one that fits that. If you don't notice the bird's just hanging out, it's not doing any breeding things. Yeah, but you'd be surprised. One of the options is, a bird singing for 7 days in a row. So if you went to a place 7 days in a row and you heard the same bird singing in the same spot, you can put a breeding code. So it really can dive deep into that. And again, it's best judgment. And this really helps give a snapshot of what the bird was doing in that area for Cornell. So, the Cornell can look back and go, oh, that bird was likely breeding there. So those are all the different breeding codes. And they go on and on. So you see multiple birds singing, pairs, a suitable habitat, courtship. So you can see they go on and on and on. Carrying nesting material. So anyways, you choose the best one that suits it. You can add comments for unusual sightings. So let's say you saw this Cooper's hawk and you saw it, or you want to know something, you wrote, no, the bird flew over my head. Okay, so you can note that. Okay, so there's this things called high counts. And this flags the sighting. So what it does, see how now it's flagged, it's highlighted. If a sighting gets flagged, that means it's going to get kicked back to the eBird reviewer. So this is either rare birds or high counts, and then you're going to want to make a note of why how you counted the birds, or if this is the exact count, et cetera, et cetera. So there's a lot of brown creepers. When it comes to rare birds, you're going to want to note as much detail as possible for us. So this is the red does not necessarily mean that it's going to get flagged for us, but the red R on the side, that will automatically get flagged to us eBird reviewers for review. So, and then you're going to really want to note, if I saw a cinnamon teal there at the Marblehead, I'm going to want to note it. So, male cinnamon head, similar to, X, Y, and Z, blah, blah, blah. Or, and then you're going to want to know your experience with the bird, what field guide you use to ID it, et cetera, et cetera. You really want to go into as much detail as possible. And so same thing. So this is a magnolia warbler. This would just be an out-of-date one. So we would just note, like, maybe the magnolia was a couple days early, so we were noting it that it's early or something. And then those dots all over, again, those little yellow ones, that just means the bird is infrequent. So it is there, but it's just not there as much as maybe some of the other species. If it's a red dot, it is there, but it's kind of rare. And then if it has the red R, it's really rare. And then you can submit your checklist. You're all set to go. That is eBirding mobile in a nutshell. I got one more little video though. It'll go over there. All right. This one's a little quick video also. So there are other features on eBird mobile. That first one's where to submit. This one is to, there's all sorts of different things. You can check your stats. And early, you break it down. This trip summary, this is for a year. These are all the birds that you saw in a year. And it really just starts to break it different things down, similar to the desktop version, but this is the mobile version. So there's some of the same features on there. But the desktop version is a little bit more neat, I guess you would say. Okay. So when it comes to using eBird, and I wanted to talk about birding different spots and using eBird at some of those spots. So the example I'm using is Ottawa, because we're all familiar with Ottawa National Wildlife Refuge, hence why we're all here. And it's a great example because it has a ton of eBird hotspots within the National Wildlife Refuge. And some of them are kind of confusing what to do with and how to use it and so on and so forth. So I'm going to explain how to make us eBird reviewers as happy as possible when using some of these eBird hotspots. And this goes across the board.
Jeremy,
So,
excuse me.
Yeah.
Participant Diane says, can you give a quick review how to see a specific eBirders lists?
A specific eBirders list?
Yeah.
So you cannot see a specific eBirders. Okay, it depends. So yes, you can see a list if you, let's say if it's a recent list, you can go to recent sightings at a hotspot, and then you can pull up their checklist of that day or so. But you cannot pull up like, you can't like go into their profile and see like all their lists or anything like that. But you can also, another way to do it, if you know what species maybe you're looking for. So let's say they wanted to, like, oh, I saw a checklist with marbled godwit on it. You can go to explore species, and then you can type in marbled godwit, and if you know whereabouts where that eBird list was submitted, then you can look for it. So you're gonna have to kind of dig for it a little bit. eBird isn't really set up to kind of pinpoint specific people's list necessarily, so you might have to do a little bit of digging, but there are ways to find it if it's public. So, okay. eBirding Ottawa. I'm going to kind of go through these kind of quick because I don't want to run out of time. So Ottawa National Wildlife Refuge is very interesting because there's a county line that goes through the middle of it. As you can see right here, this road right here is 3. If you guys are familiar with the Wildlife Drive, this is where you would come up and then you would turn right and then go up. So you're actually going to be driving on the county line for some portion. What us eBird reviewers ask you to do is to stop your checklist when you go into a different county. So you don't want to run the same checklist when you're in Ottawa County and then when you enter into Lucas County. We want the data to be separate. So we ask you to stop when you hit the county line and then start a new checklist, and which is pretty easy to do when you're using the mobile version, and then start your Lucas County list. So this will help us, and this will help you build different lists in different counties as well. So again, we ask you to use your best judgment. eBird tells us that wherever you're standing and you can see the birds, those birds can go on your eBird checklist. But if for review reasons, if it's like a really rare bird, we ask you to submit the checklist from the county that the bird is actually in. So let's say you find a rough right here on this road 3, and it's in the Ottawa side of it on the road, and you submit it for the Lucas County side of the road. Us reviewers aren't going to be, we're not going to be unhappy, but we're going to be like, hey, can you change it? So So yeah, that helps us out. So choosing the correct county. So this is an example of different hotspots. So this is Ottawa National Wildlife Refuge, Ottawa County. That's just a general hotspot there. This is Ottawa National Wildlife Refuge, Lucas County, but there's a ton of different little hotspots all within there. So if you really wanted to break it down and go birding at all the different hotspots in Ottawa County or in Ottawa National Wildlife Refuge, you could really do that. Oh, that's not quite. Ignore that one. I meant to delete that. Metzger Marsh. So now I'm gonna touch base on some other spots that I like to go birding. Metzger Marsh is a really cool place, located right next to Howard Marsh. This is I would say my favorite place to go birding. There's a small little woodlot right up here. And what I mean by small, it's very, very small, very easy to bird. You can bird it in the parking lot. If you've never been to Metzger, this is a road that you drive in, come in like right through here. You drive here. There's some pull offs onto here. You can scope into the road. This is Howard Marsh over here, and this is a jetty that you can walk on, and you can do some birding from the jetty. There's a little pier here that you can look into Lake Erie as well. So a lot of good birding opportunities here at Metzger, and it's one of my favorites. Again, right next to Metzger Marsh is Howard Marsh. This is reclaimed farmland, and it is great for shorebirds and some specialty birds that have been coming over the years, such as black-necked stilt have been breeding there, yellow-headed blackbirds, and so on. Again, I don't walk the whole thing. I usually will come in off of here, drive this, bird around here, go into the parking lot, do some scoping, and then I'll head out. So all of this is Howard Marsh, and if you wanted to walk around it, it would take you a really long time. And all this now is part of Howard Marsh as well. So it's a very, very big place. You can spend all day there if you wanted. Pearson Metro Park is down Highway 2, and it's a great place to break up the habitat. So switch it from the marshes, and then you go into this wooded habitat. You see a lot of different types of passerines, and they have a window on wildlife, so it's a great place to get out of the rain if you wanted to. And it's my favorite place to go look for thrushes. I have very, very good luck looking for great cheeked thrush here at Pearson Metro Park. So it's a great place to find species like that. Mallard Club Marsh is not a place that I go birding during the day a lot, but I will say during migration, I like to go there at night and look for rails and bitterns. It is open to the public, but it is a hunting marsh, so they let us use their marsh and go let us birders in there during the right time of year. Right next door is Maumee Bay State Park, and there's a trail here. This is Maumee Bay State Park right here, and this trail is actually nice to walk. You get passerine birding to your left, and then to the right, you can look into Mallard Club Marsh and get a lot of the waterfowl and ducks and stuff like that. So a great place to go birding. Touching on Ottawa National Wildlife Refuge again. So this is the visitor center. And a lot of people forget, I think, to go birding behind the visitor center, but I think it's a great opportunity to go see lots of birds. There's some nice trails behind there. Good passerine birding. Usually there's a screech owl hiding out in there somewhere. So it's a really fun place to go birding. Usually I'll stop in there and I'll maybe walk around there for a little bit before I go onto the wildlife drive or something. Oh, it's also a great place to use the restroom. Nice, great place for restrooms if you're looking for those while you're out birding.
And Jeremy, I just want to add the visitor center at the Ottawa National Wildlife Refuge is open now. And they have second and third floor, there's some species, that have been like donated by somebody. So they are there also. So you can see some of them up close.
Nice.
Stuffed ones, yeah.
Yeah, taxidermied. Yep.
Yeah, and then also an EV shuttle would be running during the whole spring. And so the walking trails, if you can't get to the walking trails, you can't walk. We run EV shuttles Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, first come, first serve basis. So you can just drive around there.
Nice. Cool.
Yeah.
Okay. So Ottawa National Wildlife, the Wildlife Drive, this is a great way to cover a lot of ground and go into the wildlife refuge. So the refuge is not open to the public every day, year round. So they open it up certain times, and during spring, luckily for us, they open it up for an extended period of time. So going out there is a privilege, so keep that in mind. And then also, it's a great way to cover a lot of ground. You can do some car birding. You can just use your binoculars from your car. You can sit, relax. I like to, if I'm hungry for lunch, I'll take my lunch. I'll eat my lunch while I'm driving around the wildlife drive, look at birds, munch something, pull off, look at birds. It's a great way to see a lot of shorebirds, lingering waterfowl. There's some good little stop offs to look for some passerines, so you can look for your warblers and vireos and flycatchers and stuff like that. It's also another great way to spend your rainy day. So, nothing like staying dry inside your car on a rainy day. And if anyone's familiar, Northwestern Ohio gets lots of thunderstorms during May. So stay dry, do the wildlife drive. It's great. I'm not going to dive too much into McGee Marsh. Pretty famous, pretty well known. I really wanted to stress, make sure to use the correct spots when you are birding McGee Marsh. So there are several different spots within here that are on eBird. You have the boardwalk. This hotspot right here and this hotspot right here are the same hotspot. It's the Crane Creek Estuary Trail. And then there's another trail behind the boardwalk. There's the beach. And again, like Ottawa, this is split into two different counties. So the Lake Erie side of it is Lucas County, and the Highway 2 side is Ottawa County. So again, make sure you're choosing the right counties. That will make us eBird reviewers very happy when we see that you've found a rare bird and you selected the right place. Again, another huge metro park. This is Oak Openings Metro Park. It's a great place to go birding. There's so much area in here, but I'm just going to try to touch on some highlights really quick. There's the Evergreen Trail behind the lodge and the Silver Trail. It's also called Tornado Alley. It's because a tornado went through there. That is where I do the majority of my birding, behind the lodge. So they also have a window on wildlife. And then there's a couple of highlighted species that I wanted to just touch on real quick. They have summer tanagers and lark sparrows at Girdham and Reed Road. Two really great species to see here in Northwestern Ohio. On Jeffers Road to the Horse Riding Center, it's a good place to see blue grosbeaks, blue-winged warbler, and at night is a really good place to do some owling. And then Girdham Road at the bike path at night is a really good place to see eastern whippoorwills and woodcocks. So, so you can do some really good birding at night here at Oak Openings as well. So again, just want to touch on that really quick. That's it's a huge metro park. Again, another place where you can spend all day, and that is in the south western corner of our county. There's some other spots near Oak Openings. Again, I just wanted to give some highlights. Irwin Prairie, Cannonball Prairie, and Sandhill Crane Wetlands. If you're already out that way, it is worth checking out some of these spots for some really great species. So in the description, it wanted to, for people that want to get started birding, I wanted to touch on some things that I use. And again, just really quick highlights. I really want to stress on getting a paper field guide. Using eBird, using Merlin, using your apps are really great, but nothing beats having the paper field guide in hand and flipping through those plates and learning about those birds and really honing in on the IDs and comparing the similar species and all that kind of stuff. So getting a paper field guide is really the best way, in my opinion, besides actually going out and birding, to learn about the birds. So people always ask me, well, how did you know that was that bird so quickly? How did you know like that? I studied. That's plain and simple. I just study. So there's no quick cheat sheet to this. It's just getting out there, learning the birds, and then going back home and studying when you are not out birding. My recommendation is this National Geographic Birds of North America is my favorite field guide for North America and such. Again, binoculars, you can get yourself a nice sturdy pair of binoculars for $150 or so, and they will usually be quality and last you for as long as you're going to go birding. Most of them have lifetime warranties on them as well. If you're going to go for shorebirds and waterfowl, I highly recommend getting a scope. Once you're in the scope buying era of birding, you're starting to put money towards birding. So before this, you're getting into birding pretty cheaply. Once you start using a scope, it can be somewhat more expensive. You can get some decent scopes for won't maybe break the bank, but they can be kind of expensive if the better scope you get. And I will recommend the better scope that you get, the better quality of imagery you're going to have to see, and you're going to see a lot more birds. And of course, a lot of people are photographers and use cameras, and this is a great way to start birding. Get out there, take pictures, go home, look at the pictures that you've taken when you get home, pull out your field guide. Oh, I see this field mark on this bird. I highly recommend for beginners using a camera. I don't shun that at all. Okay, that is my nitty gritty talk. Again, I'm right at about an hour. So we'll open it up to some questions for about the next 10 minutes or so, Tom.
Thanks, Jeremy. I don't see any questions in the chat. So people, this is the time to unmute yourself and speak directly to Jeremy. Don't be shy. Feel free to talk to him.
And as a host, I think I also wanted to thank everybody for their questions, and Paul Jacek for sending a lot of links, a lot of information that he has shared already. So really appreciate that.
Yeah, I appreciate that too, Paul. So Paul does the eBird reviewing with me here in the counties I mentioned earlier. So usually if I have a question about some sort of rarity, or I'm not sure about something, I could bounce it off him or some of the other eBird reviewers, and we do the same. So yeah, so I appreciate that. He has a wealth of knowledge. He's been birding in the area for some time now, and knows his stuff of the local area. So thanks, Paul.
Okay, Jeremy, Susan says, can you share slides with location tips?
Yeah. So I don't know if she's asking about these slides, but this is being recorded as well.
And then we'll send the recording after this session. And then, Jeremy, if you wanted to share a PDF, we'll attach that to the session also.
Okay. All right. Great. So, so give me sometime tomorrow. I'll make sure to turn this into a PDF. And when they get the video uploaded, they can attach a PDF of the slides to the PDF.
Perfect.
Could I ask a question outside of eBird?
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Hi, Jeremy.
Hey, Shay.
A friend of mine just found this bird today, a bird strike downtown, and I was wondering if you could identify it.
So that is a northern flicker.
Northern flicker.
Yep, as a species of woodpecker, and that to me actually does not look like a window strike. That is almost certainly a peregrine falcon kill. Okay. So we have resident peregrine falcons downtown, and one of their favorite things to go after are the northern flickers. So almost any day that you walk downtown in the morning, you can probably find a northern flicker torn apart down there. Okay. So it's a favorite of theirs. So yeah, northern flicker.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
And I think there was just one more question. There was county line in McGee again, please. I think that's what was requested. Can you go over the county line in McGee?
Yeah, again? So McGee's county line is fairly easy, a lot more simpler, I think, than Ottawa National Wildlife Refuges. As you're driving in to McGee, after you pass the visitor center, you're going to go on basically this road that kind of looks like a dike. What do they call it? I'm blanking on
Causeway, the causeways.
The causeway, thank you, the McGee Marsh Causeway. So about halfway through the causeway is where the county line stops for Ottawa and crosses into Lucas County. So basically, when you're doing any birding at McGee Marsh Boardwalk or on the Goose Haven Trail or on the beach, it's almost always certainly in Lucas County. So a majority of McGee Marsh birding is in Lucas County. Like I said, the county line is on that causeway, and most people will submit their check. Yeah, Paul, go on. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Yeah.
I've included a link to the McGee and Ottawa maps that show where the county line is. So for the McGee Marsh Causeway, it's actually closer to Lake Erie than you would think. There's a sign along there with ducks on it near one of the northernmost pull-offs, and the county line is actually just south of that duck sign. So that's an easy way to find that.
Awesome. Yeah, that's great.
Thank you, Paul.
There was also a question about some of the other hotspots. So I've included the birdinghotspots.org link that that OOS puts together with Ken Ostermiller. So for every eBird hotspot, that website will have additional details, maps, birding tips for the hotspot, sometimes a list of species you might see there, whether it has facilities or if it's accessible in other ways. So that link is birdinghotspots.org/US/Ohio.
Yeah, and that is mostly a labor of love from Ken. So it's very helpful. It's a very useful source to deep dive into different hotspots. So thanks, Paul.
I think we are right on time. We don't see any other questions.
Yeah,
Jeremy, thank you so much. This is really great. Appreciate you putting this together.
I appreciate everyone listening to me and joining in. And if anyone's interested, if any birding stuff I have going on, or birding stuff that goes on at the zoo, conservation stuff, you could always check it out. It's just ToledoZoo.org/birding. Pretty easy to get to. It has a lot of information that I do, some things I do at the zoo. And then hopefully you guys can have me back. I know Tom asked about a question about my big year.
Yes, yeah, that's fine.
I don't want to go too more into it because I could talk about it for a long time. But in 2020, I completed a lower 48 big year and broke a record. I hope I have some talks coming up about that. But if you guys wanted to hear more about that, I would love to come back and share that with you guys at some point. But again, thank you, everybody.
Well, that'll be great. Yeah, we really appreciate it. Yeah.
Jeremy, that's a great idea. If you're up to doing another program about that, I will reach out to you to schedule you.
Sounds great, Tom. Thank you.
You bet. All right. Take care.
Yep.
Right.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. Yeah. Good night. Thanks everyone for joining. Yeah. Thanks, Jeremy, again. Yeah.
Of course, CJ. Have a good one.
You too. Yeah.